Hi gang, Nigel here with you. So where have I been? Busy painting, that's where I've been. And as you know, as I told you in the last video I did with all my cheap and crappy excuses, warm weather, wet weather, windy weather, bloody whatever. Basically, if it's windy, I don't like leaving the Mustang on the driveway. If it's wet, I don't mind it getting wet, but I don't fancy, if a bin's going to blow over or something, you can guarantee it's going to blow over and hit the Mustang, that'll be it. Delphi, I used to work for Delphi. So, as you can see as well, sweatshirt, winter's here by the look of it, so it's, what is it today? It's September the 23rd, 2020, and today I'm going to show you the chassis. The paint's on, all hardened off. It's had about 3 good coats of the Corylus QDR, which is absolutely amazing stuff. You get it from Arkwright Paints. You can look them up online. If I think of it, I'll put a link down below. But basically, Corylus are a paint manufacturer that make paints for the industry. So they only sell in, like, I don't know, 25 litre drums or whatever, or maybe it's 5 litre drums. Arkwright buy it and decant it into smaller drums for us so that we can buy 2.5 litres, 1 litre, half a litre, whatever. And which is great. Prices are really reasonable, and you know, go to the Arkwright site and have a look. The only problem is it's called QDR, but I think they call it chassis all-in-one. I mean, I've used nearly all of this. Glass reinforced chassis paint black is what it's called, but you can see on the top of the tin they've written QDR, and as you can see, it's very dusty. I think they call it chassis all-in-one. I'm not sure, but give them a ring, look on their website. But this is the one to go for. It's actually like a semi-gloss finish. Now, as I said in my last video, I had to speak to Corylus because I couldn't get hold of Arkwright because of this pandemic. Basically, the confusion is Arkwright Paints were led to believe that you can't overcoat this with pretty much anything. Now, Corylus have told me you can overcoat it with pretty much anything. They said even if you leave it for long enough, he didn't actually say a time, I should have asked, but he said if you leave it long enough you could even go over it with a 2-pack paint. But to be quite honest with you, I actually asked the question a couple of times, you know, is there a semi-gloss black paint you make that I can go over this with? And they didn't respond, probably because they thought I was an effing idiot, because this is a semi-gloss black paint and you can use it as a one-off primer overcoat. So basically this has been sandblasted, it's had the living daylights kicked out of it with the pressure washer inside the chassis rails and everything, and then it's had all that rear cross member, you know. I went around all the edges, I showed you in the last video, I did all the edges, all the welds, wherever there's any nuts and bolts, you know, captive nuts, any little sharp areas where there's corners, went around with the little gun first, and then went around with the big gun afterwards and gave it a good 2 or 3 coats. The downsides to this paint, when I was spraying it, it was about 22 degrees, 23 degrees. It dries extremely fast. So the problem, and I'll show you the chassis in a minute, and I'll show you where I've got the problems. One of the problems you get is if you've sort of sprayed around, like looking there, where is it, here, like around that spring turret, if you paint around there and you get it all lovely and it's all nice inside, then you go up the edge, any overspray that goes inside will probably stick to the chassis and become rough. So you have to work very, very methodically and keep it wet. So what I did, I thinned it probably about 20%, which is a bit more than they recommend, but it's gone on beautifully and it's sort of settled down. Only in a few places have I got this dryness. The modelers amongst us that are watching this will know, if you spray into a corner, you do tend to get a dry area. Jess is going to go melt, his dog's barking. So, shut up, Jess. So basically, you will get this dryness where you get the paint is sort of drying in the air and then sticking onto the surface. So that is a downside of any fast drying paint. As I say, as modelers we know about it, it's awful, particularly in the summer. So yeah, thin the paint a little bit more. Could have left it till it was a bit colder to spray it. If I'd have known that we were going to go down to, like today we're like 17, 18 degrees, if I'd known we were going to get this cool, then I might have left it for the final coat, and I don't have enough paint left now to give it another coat. So, but I mean, you have to bear in mind you're doing this, it is only a chassis. I'm after bloody perfection and trying to get it perfect, but it is, at the end of the day, it is just a chassis. So the positive sides, coverage is absolutely incredible. You put it on, you need to sort of relearn. You kind of put it on quite heavy. It's very much like if you've ever used, is it called Resurface? Surfacer? There's that paint that you could get. It's basically, it's a polyester primer. It's very, very thick. And or is it an epoxy primer? I can't remember now. But it's very, very thick. It's a 2-pack. And you basically spray it down and it kind of, you know, it almost goes on like bloody blancmange and then just sets. And it's more like a coating than a paint. And that's what this is like. If you try and sort of dust it on really fine, you will literally get dust. If you try and use a small gun, you know, you'll see the lines of dust where you've been there. You need to get back, get a big fan and bang it on and really, really lay it on. And you'll see in a minute the finish is incredible. So so that's the good side. I would recommend this to anyone. I don't know about its capabilities of withholding rust. We're going to find out today because I'm going to put the chassis out in the rain and then give it a couple of days, and then I'll look for any brown spots appearing, and that will show me if I've got any issues that I can repair now before it all goes back together. But basically, yeah, it's apparently it's like 30 years of history with it, and it doesn't corrode for like 10 years or something. So we shall see. Whatever happens at the end of the day, it's going to be much better than the crap that was put on there by the manufacturers, because there was a lot of areas on here. I think I remember I showed you when I was doing the sandblasting bits. The actual paint was just, you know, you get like an inch circle just come off and there'd be bare metal behind, and it was where there was grease or whatever on the steel, so the paint didn't stick to it. All around all the welds, obviously, I think I keep going on about this, there was no prep done, so everything was rusty. There's spatter that you could break off with your fingernail, so obviously when that falls off it leaves bare metal behind, and that's an opportunity for rust to start. And the other thing worth remembering is if you look at this chassis, if you look back at my videos when doing the cleaning up, sort of from the, you know, from this outrigger, this body support back seems to be where most of the issues were. You know, where you find the worm roots underneath the paint, the corrosion. It only seems to be from there back, and particularly from the rear spring hanger back. So obviously that's where it's getting stone chipped or whatever, I don't know. But basically that seemed to be the worst area on this chassis. But none of it is rotten. None of it has had to have repairs. You know, the only welding work that's been done is me straightening out that rear cross member. If you want to see that, go back a couple of videos and you'll see that work being done. But overall, I'm really, really pleased. So I'm going to shut up now and stop waffling and show you this chassis. And then we're going to look at me doing some other bits and pieces which I've got prepped up ready for Corollas S, which is another Corollas product, which is the red primer. So I'm not going to go on about that too much because I've talked about that a lot in the past. So let's go look at this chassis and then I'll be back. So as you can see, we've got a lovely day. Really, really nice. Like a bit of rain. Still, we need it, don't we, I guess. So here we are, this is the chassis. Now I'm going to do my best to show you this without wandering around too much. We can see there's the front outriggers, and you can kind of get an idea. If I go this way around, go this way around, you can see the kind of finish you get. It is lovely. Got a long front rail there, we've got the front spring support. Really, really lovely. All around the front here, around the dumb irons. It is a beautiful, beautiful paint. Need some better lighting, don't we? But yeah, really, really nice. Around the other side, you can see there the sheen you get on it. The other interesting thing with this paint, if you've got an area where it's not completely degreased or whatever, when you paint it, it kind of stays tacky in that area for ages, but then it does eventually dry. So it's down here, I've got all these welds. I've got most of the weld spatter off, but you know, you can see like areas like this, some of it still remains. In here was an area where I had problems with the dust in the paint. You can see it is lovely, and as I say, I would recommend this to anyone. As far as I know, there aren't any runs on here at all, which is quite amazing. As I say, if there were runs, it wouldn't matter because it is only a chassis. Here's the rear cross member. You can see there's the under here. You can see brush marks. That's where I brushed the paint in thick and kind of used it as a filler stopper, if you like, for the welds. So see there looking along, and then we got the, oops, over here. Got the rear cross member, which I did with all the welds all straightened out, so that's all looking lovely. It's still, I can still see some witness here, so I may actually paint this again once we get the once we get it back on its axles. I did actually remove the frame and paint underneath where the brackets are and everything on the back. I didn't do it on the front, but we got that done. So you can see her moving around and moving on the inside of the chassis over there. You can see it's lovely, really, really nice. Really pleased with it. And did I say I would recommend this to anyone? Really, really good stuff. Really good stuff. Looking forward to getting the Gwyn Lewis. Gwyn Lewis makes a panel to go over this, because this area here in your cross member takes a hell of a beating. It gets beat up with stones, it gets full of mud, everything that gets thrown up by the back tyres goes in there. So he does a plate which goes over there and deflects all the shit downwards. So I'll definitely be getting those off him. And I'm not sure if I remembered, if I mentioned this is going to be getting another wax on before it goes back on the vehicle. What I'm going to be doing is fitting all the bracketry and stuff as much as I can to plug as many holes as I can, and basically I want to wax oil it again and then turn it on its side, wax oil it, the other side, wax oil it, upside down wax oil. So make sure we get every single bit of the chassis inside covered. I'm so happy with how the wax oil has prevented it from rusting up to now that that's going to be my chosen product going forward. So there we go, that's the chassis, all painted, all ready to go, and now it's going to go outside and get wet. And I've just noticed something, just to show you how good wax oil is. If you remember, I talked before about the way it creeps, and if you find a hole, you'll find the wax oil sort of creeps up out of the hole. Look at that. Since I sprayed it, it's still creeping. That stuff has been on there since 2011. Okay, it was something like the 10th of April 2011 I put this on there. So there you go, it's still creeping. Incredible. I can't see any anywhere else, but yeah, that's amazing. Absolutely amazing. So you can see some of that dustiness down here. You probably can't pick it up on camera, but as I say, it's a chassis at the end of the day. I don't know if the light will pick it up down here. You can see down in here there's some of that dustiness, but you know, at the end of the day, doesn't matter. The thing is, if I try and repair, if I sand that back and then try and repair it, I'll end up with the dustiness around here. So I think doing localized repairs with this stuff might be a little bit awkward, unless you really thin it out, or perhaps spray some thinners on there first and then paint it, and then it'll settle into the thinners. I don't know. There's going to be more than one way to skin a cat. So absolutely over the moon. Really happy. Really pleased. Let's go look at some brackets. Right, I've got a I've got a bucket of brackets here, which I've done. Got the rear shock mounts and everything, which have been blasted. And you can see that with the moisture in the air, the rust has just started coming back through again. But it doesn't matter, because the Corollas S has a rust inhibiting agent in it, so that'll be great. So these will get a quick clean and a rub down with some alcohol before, or xylene, before I actually do any painting. You can see these brackets. I mean, everywhere where it's silver was where it was rusty. So, I mean, this one here in particular, this is one of the fuel pipe mounts. As soon as I let the blast in here, the paint all just fell off. It was where it was just flaking off and leaving bright metal behind it. So another poor part was the fuel filter mount. That was all rusty around its mountings. And then that's the fuel cooler mount. Again, that was all rusty all around its mountings. Another shock mount there. We've got our exhaust hangers, they were quite rusty. So they're all done now. The other thing I wanted to talk about in this video was sandblasting. Now, a couple of people have asked me to do a video on sandblasting and how the different items work. I've got a little cabinet, one of the little machine mark benchtop cabinets. Basically, that thing is not very good at all. The compressor, you need about between 70 and 90 psi to make it effective. If you run it around 40 psi, it's a waste of time. The gun is an awful design. The gun actually has the sand coming up into it, and then the sand has to turn at 90 degrees to get pulled into the venturi. So that doesn't really help very much. I look for guns where the sand comes in at a 30-degree angle, would be much better. But like I say, you need 70, 90 psi to make that work. I also bought one of those little guns from Amazon. In fact, I'll show you now. So I bought this gun from Amazon. Absolute rubbish. Total waste of time. You fill this up with sand, obviously, and then you blast. You've got a valve on the side here which controls the amount of sand that comes through. And if you use anything less than sort of 60, 70 psi, it's just an absolute waste of time. It's just a means of getting sand from there to the atmosphere. I don't know what the point is, and apparently these aluminium nozzles were out for a pastime. But no, not happy with that at all. I mean, luckily it wasn't very expensive, so it doesn't really matter. It might be handy for spraying underseal or something, who knows. But as a sandblaster, it's just a waste of time. I know you guys are going to come and say, oh no, I got one of those and it's absolutely brilliant. I'm talking about my experiences. Now, if you look back a couple of months ago, I did a video on the pot blaster, the 10-gallon pot blaster I bought. Or 10 litre, is it? 10 litre. That thing is bloody brilliant. Okay, now I've seen a lot of people complain about them and they've said they're awful. I've only got a 50 litre compressor, but it's 14 CFM, I think. It's a twin cylinder belt driven thing, and that compressor can keep up with that pot blaster absolutely fine, because you can blast at like 40 psi, and it's very effective. I mean, you can see here the results. It's it's very effective. It takes all the paint off. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant tool. You can see there's a bracket there. What more could you want? To give you an idea, I did all of this that I've just shown you in 15 minutes. These bits and pieces in here, not those washers, these little brackets here, I did in the cabinet blaster. I had to wind the compressor up to like 80 psi, which meant I had to stop every couple of minutes to let it catch up, because it can't keep up at 80 psi. And I blasted these, okay, just these small brackets here, all right, and it took an hour. So now somebody asked me to do a comparison video showing you the different options. It's nigh on impossible, because if I try and show you what's going on inside the cabinet, you just get a reflection off the top. It's difficult enough for me to see in there. It's sod's law. If the perspex on the top gets dirty and scratched from the blasting sand, you can see it to a certain point, but then once it gets worse, you can't see through. When it's brand new, you just get reflection off the ceiling, so you can't see anything anyway. So this thing, I'm not even wasting my time. And the big pot blaster, I think, would be very, very difficult to show you, because I wouldn't be able to get close enough without the sound coming back and maybe damaging the camera. So basically, I'm not going to be doing any demonstrations of any blasting. There are lots and lots on YouTube. I'm just talking about my experiences and what I think. The cabinet blaster I've got down below, I've had for a few years. Never been that impressed with it. It blocks up all the time. The other stupid thing about it is it picks the sand up from one end of the cabinet. So basically, you could have a mound of sand this deep in there, or grit, should I say, and once one end's gone, once it goes down on one end, that's it. You've got to stop, pull the cabinet up, let the sand run down, and then you can start again. But the worst thing about it is, the first thing I would change, in fact I probably will do, is change that bloody gun, because it's a joke, and that's probably why the pressure has to be so high. But as I say, if you've only got a small compressor and you've only got like 10 CFM or whatever, that pot blaster is just amazing, because it only needs 40 psi. So any little blaster will keep it, any little compressor will keep up with it. So anyway, I'm going to get some Corylus down on here, and then I'll come back and I'll show you these parts what they look like when they're painted. So I'll see you in about an hour. Well, for you it'll be a second. There we go, guys. There's the garage with all this strange fruit hanging. So there you go. You can see there's the shock mounts, towing eyes, brackets for this, that and the other, more brackets. More brackets, that's the one for the fuel breather, isn't it? More towing eyes, washers, more brackets. Got the cross member down there, I forgot to show you that earlier. And unfortunately, if you look here, I got to run. I had the paint a bit too thin, I sort of put too much thinners in, and then I didn't want to go back and mix it all again, so I just put this on and we'll go for it. But you see the kind of finish you get with this stuff is bloody lovely. It really is nice paint, this Carolus. This is the Carolus S. So this is that one. It sounds like I'm promoting this stuff because they give me it for free and they don't, and I'm not. So there we go. It's just that it's so bloody good. If you look back on my previous videos, you'll see I've done a test sample which has been left outside for 6 months, and it's just awesome. And you can see here, you know, the finish is just incredible. It's really, really nice. Another little run there, look. A little tiny run. What I have found with this stuff, though, you can see here, there's evidence of a run there. But I have found that it kind of tends to pull in quite tight and disappear. Got the exhaust hanger brackets there. I radiused all the corners on all of this as well and softened up all the edges because it is all just stamped steel. And you've got a fuel cooler bracket and fuel filter bracket. So all looking lovely, and they'll get a coat of what's called Carolus RF16, which is a glass impregnated gloss black. So another coat of this one. And the way to put this on, you do all the edges first, around all the holes, all the edges and all the corners, and then spray the whole thing. And then do the same again on your second coat, and then spray the whole thing. Then leave that to dry for sort of 24 hours, whatever. Check you haven't got any runs you want to rub back or anything, and then go through it again, doing the same with the RF16. Go around the edges first, all the holes, then put your main coat on. And if you're really clever and you're really careful and you take your time, you can get like a really high gloss finish. Go back and have a look at the handbrake drum. Even though I was amazed how that came out. So there we go, guys. So that's it for today. I'll see you all the next couple of days, and I'll show you all this when it's all gloss black. And I want to get all this on. The reason I'm doing this cross member, I think it'd be a lot easier to fit with the chassis on the rotisserie. Chassis out there. So with the chassis on its rotisserie on its side, I think we'll be able to put a trolley jack on a block of wood, put some blankets to protect the paint, jack the rails apart, and then slide that in horizontally rather than trying to lift it in vertically and everything. And then all these brackets and stuff, they can all go on, and that'll plug some of the holes up to stop all the wax all running out everywhere. So the bottom of the axle poking through there, look, see? There. So I'll see you all soon, guys, and get another video done. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and keep your Land Rovers happy. Bye for now.